Hello and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Today, we'll be exploring some of the modern IT demands of financial institutions in their journey towards digital transformation and how DDI Solutions can address them effectively. In this webinar, we'll explore the transformative potential of DDI Solutions and how they can empower financial institutions to thrive in today's competitive environment. We'll also delve into how a DDI solution is revolutionary in providing high availability, elastic scalability, holistic control, centralized visibility, and advanced security when built on a solid foundation of policy-driven management and automation. Very quick introduction. I'm your host, Akshara GJ, product expert from ManageEngine. I collaborate closely with the marketing teams for ManageEngine DDI Central and Cloud DNS. A big part of what I do is talk about the critical network services like DNS, DHCP, and IPAM, and I'm here to share insights on how DDI solutions can significantly optimize financial network infrastructures. As for the agenda today, firstly, we'll address the demands of modern distributed financial institutions. As financial institutions expand and decentralize, they face unique challenges in maintaining seamless and secure operations. Scalability is crucial for growing institutions, and we'll delve into strategies that support expansion without compromising performance or security. Ensuring that network services are always available and redundant is vital to prevent downtime and ensure continuous operations. We'll cover how such a high availability configuration is achieved using a DDI solution. Moving on, we'll explore why proper network segmentation is essential for security and performance. We'll discuss how to implement effective segmentation strategies to protect sensitive data and improve network management. Automation can significantly enhance operational efficiency and consistency. We'll look at how policy-driven automation can streamline network management within and across multiple branches. We'll then talk about how leveraging real-time analytics helps maintain security and ensure resources are optimally used. In today's threat landscape, it's crucial to have a self-defending and resilient network. We'll cover the essential strategies of DNS security and how to implement multi-layered strategies to protect your organization. Look at the figures here. This paints a stark picture of the cybersecurity battleground faced by finance in 2022. Amidst the distributed landscape of financial institutions lies an ever-evolving array of cyber threats, each posing a unique challenge to the security and efficiency of the finance sector. The 2023 Sonic Wall Cyber Threat Report highlights the most prominent attacks of 2022 in the finance sector, with intrusion attempts making up 35% of cyber threats, showing the aggressive efforts to breach financial defenses. Ransomware accounts for 12% of attacks, continuing to target critical systems for extortion. Malware attacks make up 16%, indicating the persistent risk of harmful software infiltrating BFSI networks. These statistics emphasize the need for robust security measures in the finance sector. Let's now focus on the demands of modern finance network, which are crucial to ensure efficient, secure, and scalable operations. The first demand, policy-driven automation and centralized control over distributed branches. Managing a large number of branches can be challenging. Policy-driven automation ensures consistent application of rules and configurations across all locations. Centralized control simplifies management and increases efficiency. The second demand, security, regulatory compliance, return on investment, and corporate trust. Security is paramount in the BFSI sector. Ensuring regulatory compliance is crucial to avoid penalties and maintain trust. Additionally, robust security measures contribute to a better return on investment by preventing costly breaches. Demand structured IP address plan with complete network visibility. Banking and finance networks are hyper-segmented and are characterized by diverse logical and physical segments based on products or services they offer involving large number of diverse subnets. A structured IP address plan helps in offering complete network visibility, automating IP address allocations, and managing the resources of the network effectively. Fourth demand, seamless network management after mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions are common in the banking and finance sector. Seamless network management during these transitions is vital to maintain business continuity and integrate new assets without disruptions. Fifth demand, managing hybrid workforce. The rise of remote and hybrid work models necessitates flexible and secure network solutions, ensuring that remote employees have secure access to the necessary resources while maintaining network integrity is a key challenge. Addressing these demands with a comprehensive strategy and the right tools will enable financial institutions to build robust, efficient, and secure network infrastructures that support their missions and future growth. Banking, financial services, and insurance sector, collectively known as the BFSI, is a place where transactions involving high stakes occur in milliseconds and financial destinies are determined in the blink of an eye. Therefore, the whole sector critically relies on factors like uninterrupted connectivity, secure transactions, and access to accurate real-time information. These elements form the foundation for the integrity and success of financial operations. As financial institutions continue to grow and expand their services across various regions, they face the challenge of maintaining a cohesive and efficient IT infrastructure. The distributed nature of these institutions means that they must manage a multitude of geographically distributed branches, ATMs, and online platforms, all while ensuring seamless customer experiences and robust security. Let's take a deep look into the image on the screen. This image illustrates how financial institutions interconnect their distributed branches using a private WAN backbone network. This network structure is typically made up of multiple LANs, VLANs, public and private cloud infrastructures, data centers that link to a wider network or WAN. As you can see, this complex setup interconnects several branch network facilities, all while enabling employees to connect to any of these facilities from their homes through a centralized core network. This typically involves a high-performance private WAN serving as the backbone. The backbone is often established using dedicated IP-MPLS routes or an optical core that interconnects all parts of the network with transmission devices, while the branches connected to it are connected via SD-WAN, SDN, or IP-MPLS augmented via VPN, facilitating cross-branch transactions. The main challenge in this infrastructure is converging all these interconnected distributed branch facilities under a common IP infrastructure. How do we achieve IP convergence here? A network infrastructure like this needs a convergence solution like DDI. Let's explore what it is. DDI is a specialized network management solution that provides a unified management console for the three core network services, DNS, DHCP, and IPAM. It enables you to take complete control and gain holistic as well as deeper visibility into the configurations of these three services. With the DDI solution, you can easily define and manage scopes, dynamically lease IP addresses to hosts, set up custom DHCP fingerprinting policies, manage DNS zones, views, and records, set up DNS security policies, analyze DNS query traffic, review audit logs, manage dual stack IP address inventories of your network, all through a single window. How can ManageEngine help you? ManageEngine has its own DDI solution called ManageEngine DDI Central. It is a user-friendly specialized solution that unifies DNS, DHCP, and IPAM into a single platform for improving operational efficiency and network stability. It manages your existing Linux-based ISE Bind9 and ISE DHCP installations and can also set up new clusters. It can also manage your Microsoft DNS and DHCP clusters. Throughout this webinar, you will see its tools and features being highlighted to witness a DDI solution in action. What if I told you that this one window solution can also serve as a single point of management for all the distributed remote branch networks of any distributed banking network? With a DDI solution, you can easily manage the DNS, DHCP, and IPAM configurations of each remote branch already connected to the main bank network using advanced technologies like SD-WAN, IP-MPLS core via VPN, or even dark fiber cables. As you onboard all your DNS and DHCP servers of a branch as a cluster into DDI Central, it starts discovering all the configurations on a granular level to consolidate, catalog, and correlate the configurations, facilitating a contextualized visibility. With all the configurations organized in its UI, you can easily control your core network services and make required amends to them. Analyze the rich visual analytics that accompany each module to get visual snapshots to arrive at valuable insights that guide you with quick troubleshooting. You can also schedule reports and take backups from time to time and arrive at actionable insights. You can also bring and migrate all your cloud managed domains that you have with prominent cloud vendors like Google Cloud DNS, AWS Route 53, Microsoft Azure, and Cloudflare. You can bring them all into DDI Central and have DDI Central as a single point of management. So this way, you can have control over your domains in cloud and your interconnected remote sites from a single window. So let's see how this is possible in ManageEngine DDI Central. So in DDI Central, you can manage each branch network as a separate cluster. So as you can see on the screen, you can create new cluster depending on their operating system, Linux or Windows. Each cluster comes with its own IP address manager, DHCP manager, and DNS manager, and can be managed independently of other clusters. All you have to do is add your DNS and DHCP servers to each cluster and discover their configurations and manage them from a unified window. You can just choose the cluster of your choice and monitor the health and performance of its core services in real time. So this is how you can seamlessly scale as your financial institutions grow geographically using DDI Central. So let's now focus on a crucial defensive strategy in network management, network segmentation. This adds another layer of protection, partitioning the enterprise network into manageable secure segments to reduce the attack surface, limit data exfiltration, and reduce the scope of audits and compliance. Network admins can separate servers and endpoint devices based on the line of business to which they belong, like introducing separate segments for consumer banking, commercial banking, investment banking, capital markets or trading, institutional asset management, IoTs, and more. A host in a retail bank branch would not need access to investment banking servers in the data center and vice versa. It is also necessary to compartmentalize those systems and desktops that interact with the SWIFT for international transaction. In the light of a series of breaches at SWIFT member banks, the FSISAC, Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the regulatory body overseeing the SWIFT network across the globe, recommends dedicated and isolated workstations and limiting the exposure of such payment systems to the rest of the network. Segmenting a financial institutions network is not just an operational tactic, but a strategic necessity in today's cybersecurity landscape. Segmentation provides detailed visibility into each segment, its IP inventory, objectives, and policies in the form of DHCP options, and offers tighter control over the configurations. This granularity is critical for identifying and responding to suspicious activities quickly. Network segmentation guides your network administrators where to look at in the event of an incident or capacity exhaustion. In the event of a security breach, segmentation helps contain the impact to a limited area, preventing the spread of harmful effects across the entire network. Advanced scope monitoring with defined segments provides network administrators with a visual breakdown of IP addresses within the scope based on their availability status, capacity thresholds, ensuring effective capacity planning and resource optimization. Custom policies for address pools within subnets allow for specific security and access policies tailored to the needs of different host groups within the same department, enhancing both security and operational efficiency. Segmentation also offers flexible configuration options for each scope, which means networks can be tailored to meet specific functional requirements or regulatory compliance needs. By grouping different subnets into shared networks, we can club multiple non-consecutive and unrelated scopes and treat them as a single entity to apply custom policies effectively. You can reduce the scope of compliance by reporting the audits of only those segments to the regulators instead of the whole network. So in DDI Central, we segment the network with a special tool called DHCP Scope Manager. So with this DHCP Scope Manager, you can segment your network into subnets, which are the basic building blocks of the network, and organize them hierarchically under something called supernets and club them together to form a collection called shared network. And then you have the VLAN. So for defining a subnet, you need to define the address pool range within the subnet, and you can see the utilization capacities of each subnet. So let's see how they are defined in DDI Central. So as you can see on the right side of the screen, in order to create a subnet, you need to specify the network address, network prefix, select the DHCP server that is going to provision IP addresses on this subnet and assign a failover DHCP server and define the scope of the subnet, whether it's going to be under the global level or under a shared network. You can hierarchically organize the subnet by specifying or assigning it under a supernet. If you'd like to assign this subnet to an existing VLAN, you can also do that, or you can assign this subnet to a particular VLAN, as VLANs are built atop subnets. So you'll have to define the pool data for the subnet, where you'll be defining the IP address range for the subnet, and then you can assign different DHCP options and custom options. So these DHCP options are pieces of information that the DHCP server sends to the DHCP client. So by defining the DHCP options here, whenever a client requests IP address from this particular subnet, all these DHCP options or custom options would be applied for the client. So then if you get into the shared network here, you'll have to name it and select the multiple subnets that are going to be a part of the shared network. So when you create a multiple set of subnets and club them together, you treat them as a single entity and apply collective policies to this particular shared network. And you can also you can reserve fixed addresses to a specific host by mentioning their MAC address and assigning the fixed address directly. And you can specify the scope of that particular host, whether it is going to be under the global level or under a subnet or a shared network or under a host group, which is a group of hosts put together. And you can assign policies to them or specific configurations to them using DHCP options or custom options. When the configured subnets are viewed under the IPAM module in DDI Central, the entire IP address inventory within that particular subnet is listed. As you delve deeper into a specific subnet in IPAM, a donut plot provides a visual breakdown of the number of IP addresses in the subnet according to their availability status. These visual snapshots assist administrators with effective capacity planning and alert them at utilization thresholds. In the event of an IP address conflict within a particular subnet, the admin can click on any available or free IP and directly assign it as a fixed address to one of the conflicting hosts until subsequent remediation. This way, admins have hands-on control over the IP address inventory within a subnet. So on the screen, we see a simplified example of how network segmentation is achieved using DNS Domain Views. We'll walk you through the process step by step, highlighting the distinction between internal and external views for zones under the domain name zilkerbanks.com. So let's see what are DNS views first. DNS views is a special feature through which you can implement network segmentation using DNS servers. It enhances protection against potential threats by customizing DNS responses, enforcing distinct security policies, and controls access for different user groups and network segments within your financial institution. We see a client initiate a query for the debitcards.zilkerbanks.com under the domain name zilkerbanks.com. This request is sent to the DNS server to resolve the domain name into an IP address. Upon receiving the query, the DNS server first checks the client's IP against the internal view match list. The internal view match list contains only IP addresses of registered employees who are involved in guiding debit card application processes. In this scenario, the client's IP is not found in the internal view list. Since the client's IP is not in the internal view, the DNS server then checks the external view. The external view has no such IP restrictions and resolves queries for any client IP. This view is used to provide a version of debitcards.zilkerbanks.com that only offers generic information to external visitors inquiring about Zilkerbanks debit cards. The DNS server confirms that the query for zilkerbanks.com should be handled under the external view. It locates the requested zone under the domain name zilkerbanks.com and directs the client to the appropriate resource. The IP address returned by the external view is different from the internal one, ensuring that only public non-sensitive information is accessed. Finally, the DNS server sends the appropriate response back to the client, and the client proceeds to access the resource. DDI Central captures the DNS query analytics to all its domains, zones, specific zones, or subdomains under a particular domain, views, all the block domains. So you can see all the query analytics for all these parts of a domain under the analytics module. So here on the screen, you can see the query analytics for a particular domain name named hello.com. So you can customize the time window and see the key performance indicators like queries per second and total queries and the hourly query load for this particular domain name. And you can see the IP addresses that were accessing or has been accessing this particular domain name. You can see the total queries made by that particular IP. If it's an internal IP, you'll be able to see the lease data of that particular IP. If the IP is currently under lease, you'll see a green circle around the particular IP address, indicating that the IP is currently under the lease. And you can see all the metadata associated with that IP, including the MAC address of the host associated with it, and the vendor information and the lease profile or the lease duration. So if it's an external IP, you'll just see the IP alone and not the lease information. And as you go down, you can see a visual breakdown of the record types that were accessed under this particular domain name. So these are the information you get in analytics module for a particular domain name. As the finance sector is subject to a strict regulatory requirements concerning customer data protection and privacy, DDI Solutions offer comprehensive logging and reporting capabilities that aid in compliance with regulations like the GDPR, Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, or SOX Act, and more. Any portions of the network that warrant special consideration due to audit or regulatory concerns should be prioritized. To reduce the scope of PCI DSS compliance audits, network segmentation of the resources that handle cardholder data is particularly segmented. By ring fencing all the relevant components, the audit does not need to expand beyond the confines of this network segment. By reducing the breadth of audit trails through compartmentalizing related resources on the network, this minimizes the time and effort needed to satisfy such an audit. DDI Central captures audit trails of every action executed on each and every object managed by the DHCP and DNS servers. You can choose the relevant subnets or zones and report the audits of only those segments to the regulators. This saves time and reduces costs compared to reporting full network audits. Let's see how DDI Central implements auto failover setups for DNS and DHCP services. In DDI Central, for the DHCP servers, while configuring a subnet, you can add one primary DHCP server and add as many secondary DHCP servers. In case the primary DHCP server fails, the secondary DHCP server comes to the fore and handles the traffic. If you want these servers to split the load, you can enter the relevant value in the split field. A value of 128 here indicates 50-50 load balancing, actively involving both primary and secondary servers to handle the DHCP traffic. For the DNS server, on the other hand, while configuring a domain, you can add multiple primary DNS servers for the domain. Subsequently, DDI Central also accepts a list of multiple secondary servers to facilitate reliable access to resources across a financial network. With the DDI solution in place, data from all the three core network services are not only collected but also correlated and analyzed in one central hub. In a DDI solution, like DDI Central, IPAM serves as the centralized and contextualized network source of truth that maps upstream relationships among the core services. As you can see in the image, behind the lease history of a particular IP, you get to see how it has captured and correlated rich IP metadata like DNS records, DHCP lease information, and IP address allocations of various hosts within the network. This unified approach allows for a holistic view of network operations, enabling banking network admins to make timely and informed decisions based on the comprehensive data analysis. This information aids in quickly troubleshooting network issues, optimizing resource allocations, and maintaining network stability. These three core services in sync with each other, DDI serves as a sophisticated automation hub as it becomes easy to set up end-to-end automation involving these services. So here are some of the key processes that can be automated using DDI solution. Using a DHCP server, you can automatically assign IP addresses to hosts on the network. This enhances the efficiency of network resource management and ensures that the IP addresses are reclaimed and reused appropriately, reducing wastage and preventing address exhaustion. The dynamic DNS feature updates the DNS records automatically when an IP address changes, ensuring that the network resources are always accessible via their host names. This is crucial in banking sectors where device mobility and configuration changes are frequent, necessitating real-time updates. DDI systems automatically detect and resolve IP conflicts and maintain an updated IP address inventory, ensuring reliable connectivity and preventing downtime in banking operations. You can also onboard IoT devices and other devices with predefined fingerprinting policies. Scheduled creation of DHCP scopes and DNS records allow network administrators to go on a schedule it and forget it mode, enabling them to plan and implement network expansions or updates at predetermined times for maintaining uninterrupted services during operational hours. Scheduled DNS and DHCP report from time to time gives admins a real-time snapshot of subnet capacities and zone query analytics for strategic resource planning. DDI solutions follow a defense in depth security philosophy, erecting multi layered barriers to prevent or combat against the increased sophistication of advanced persistent threats and the multiple attack vectors facing the financial institutions. Let's look at the different types of mitigation strategies based on their level of persistence of the cyber attacks targeting the financial sectors. So let's see how Sender Policy Framework or SPF works combating phishing and its variants. SPF works by adding a text record to the DNS settings of a domain. This record specifies which servers are authorized to send email from that domain. When an email is received, the recipient server checks the SPF record of the sender's domain to confirm that the server sending the message is allowed to send mail on behalf of that domain. Domain keys identified mail or DKIM is another email authentication protocol that helps verify the authenticity of an email message. Unlike SPF, which verifies the sending server's authorization, DKIM verifies the email content integrity. It does so by adding a digital signature to the email header, which the recipient server can verify. When the recipient server receives the email, it checks the DKIM signature by using the public key in the email header to decrypt the signature. If the signature matches the email's content, the email is considered authentic. DKIM helps the receiver to confirm that the message has not been altered or tampered during the transit. This is because the digital signature is calculated based on the email message content. If any part of the email message changes, the digital signature will become invalid and the email will be rejected. DKIM also provides a way for email receivers to identify the domain of the email sender. This provides a defense against phishing and all its variants, as email receivers can use this information to determine whether an email is from a legitimate sender. And then we have domain-based message authentication reporting and conformance, or DMARC policies. The DMARC works by adding a text record to a domain's DNS settings, specifying how to handle failed SPF and DKIM checks. It checks if the domain in the from header aligns with the domains in the DKIM and SPF records. If they don't align, the email may be spoofed and should be rejected or marked as spam. When an email is received, the recipient server's Check the SPF and DKIM records for authenticity. If either fails, the email is marked as spam and rejected based on the recipient's email server policies. If the email passes these checks, the server looks for a DMARC policy in the sender's DNS records to determine how to handle the email if it fails the DMARC check. You can check whether an email has passed SPF, DKIM, and DMARC checks by looking at the email headers. Here's how you can do it. Open the email in your email client, look for the email's headers, which are usually hidden by default. Find the authentication results header. Check the values of the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC fields to see if the email has passed the checks. If an email fails any of the authentication checks, it may be marked as spam or rejected outright. So here's the most crucial security strategy deployed by DDI Solutions. As DNS is the first point of contact across external networks, the DNS firewall constitutes the network's first line of defense. Following a layered approach, it places strategic defenses against unwanted intrusions. It actively blocks malicious activity using domain blocking and mitigates ongoing attacks with its response rate limiting feature. So let's see how DNS firewall works. So first, we'll be exploring how to configure self-defending networks with DNS sinkhole. Let's consider a scenario where a bank employee has clicked a link within a crafty phishing mail and unknowingly gets his or her system infected by a malware. Upon connecting to your institution's private network, the malware tries to covertly access malicious sites using your DNS resolver. DDI Central easily manages such situations with its DNS firewall. This firewall maintains a blacklist comprising a recognized collection of undesirable domains. Before the resolver can provide the actual IP address, it checks the domain against this blacklist. If there is a match on the blacklist, the resolver does not respond to fetch the real IP address from the external authoritative DNS server. Instead of connecting to the malicious site, the user is redirected to a safety page. All this is captured in the DNS logs. So let's see how the DNS sinkhole is implemented using DNS firewall. So using DDI Central, you can configure the DNS sinkhole settings for all the DNS servers in the cluster at the global or universal level. So for this, you'll have to add the domains one by one and specify if you would like to block all the subdomains under that particular domain. So if you're having a lot of domains, if you have a list of bulk domains, you can import them in bulk using the CSV file. So depending on your industry, you can import our existing list of undesirable domains and import the respective lists into that block list. And here comes the crucial part, the redirection IP, which serves as the DNS sinkhole. So when you provide a redirection IP here, whenever a user from your network tries to access any of those block domains, they'll be immediately redirected to this particular IP. And this action will be captured under the analytics page. Let's consider that a particular endpoint has been infected by by accessing a malicious domain which was not in the list. Now you can, which is in the list, you can easily pinpoint this particular host that has accessed this block domain. So for this, you'll have to go to the analytics module in DDI Central and choose the block domains option. So when you get into the block domains option, you'll have to choose a particular block domain name, and you can see the list of records accessed, the IPs and the hosts accessing that particular record. So this way you can easily identify the hosts infected host. So you can identify only the infected host. You cannot identify the other hosts also infected during this attack. So if the attack continues to be persistent, there will be a set of other compromised endpoints, and this will lead to a far complex attack called DNS amplification attack. So this is a common cyber attack scenario involving a botnet, and the defensive strategies that can be employed will be discussed over here. At the core, we have the botnet command center targeting a particular victim network or a data center network in your financial institution. It keeps sending instructions to the already compromised endpoints in your network called botnets. These botnets then execute the attack by sending malicious queries to the DNS servers using the IP address of the victim. This is known as IP spoofing. The DNS servers in your banking network, unaware of the deception, respond to these queries. However, due to the nature of the attack, these responses are not just simple replies. They are massively amplified, meaning a small query triggers a large response. The final target of this onslaught is the victim network in your banking facility. The amplified responses flood the victim's network, potentially overwhelming it with data and causing significant disruption. This type of attack is known as the distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks. These threats can be instantly identified using DDI Central's query analytics tool that visually charts unusual spikes in hourly query traffic, indicating a DDoS attack in progress. You can mitigate the DDoS attacks by configuring the DNS servers to limit the response rate to any individual IP address over a particular time. Now let's see how response rate limiting or RRL, which is crucial for controlling DNS responses, especially during amplification attacks, is implemented in DDI Central. This feature allows administrators to set various parameters that control different aspects of DNS response behavior. The RRL form that you can see on the screen does not just limit the number of identical responses per second from a single IP address or subnet. But also limits the number of all kinds of responses, error responses, DNS referral responses, specific type of DNS responses per second. You can also define how broadly rate limiting is applied across IP address ranges. It also enables you to specify the trusted clients that are exempted from the rate limiting. With the slip option over here, you can specify the frequency of truncation. If you want the response to be truncated for every third response of the every third of the amplified response, you can very well do so using the slip option over here. So by configuring these options, administrators can significantly reduce the impact of DNS-based amplification attacks, ensuring a more secure and reliable network. So that was for ISE bind DNS servers, and you can also configure RRL settings for your Windows servers using DDI Central. And this is how you configure each parameter, and you can configure the exception list for these configurations using the conditional operators over here. Cyber attackers need to move freely throughout a network to identify items of value. Network segmentation is a critical element of an overall cybersecurity strategy that reduces the risks and impact of attacks during occurrence of a breach. By segmenting a network into subnets or scopes, you isolate each segment from the rest of the network. Each segment establishes an isolated broadcast domain with the DHCP server. By taking this pragmatic approach, financial institutions can minimize business disruptions and reap benefits, such as limited exposure after an intrusion and reductions in lost productivity, remediation costs, and reputational damage from the actual loss of personally identifiable information, PII, or financial data. Network segmentation is only a part of DDI Solutions' layered security philosophy, enabling financial institutions to survive intrusions and minimize or even prevent successful data breaches. In the end, this allows for a speedy return to businesses as usual. Segmenting the scopes into subnets and VLANs help contain the damage by isolating the affected segment, allowing administrators to more effectively control the spread and mitigate risks. Subnetting also reduces network-wide threats by quarantining compromised areas and hindering unauthorized lateral movement within the network. So this brings us to the interesting part of the presentation, use case where dynamic and secure IoT adoption in financial institutions using DDI Central. The IoT or Internet of Things that you can see on screen is so intricately woven into the modern financial institutions. Previously, devices were beyond the network's tracking capabilities, but now these devices are IP enabled and can be tracked and provisioned automatically without manual intervention. As illustrated in the diagram, the IoT ecosystem is vast and interconnected, adding more complexity to the financial networks. These fleet of devices require custom policies, as some of the devices like wireless safes must be along with the key surveillance devices like motion sensors, IP cameras, and the and also kept accessible to the relevant teams and customers. So not all IoT devices can be isolated into a separate IP address space due to the vulnerabilities they impose, given their dependency and connectivity with other devices and mobile users associated with them in the network. To address this, we programmed the DHCP server coupled with the TFTP server to track and provision all devices, not just IoT, even including legacy or all those host machines, critical devices, and bring your own devices without any manual intervention. This converges all the IP-enabled devices in your organization, each requiring custom policies under a common IP plan, and interconnects them for increased productivity. Program your DHCP server to recognize devices by extracting device details using customized named DHCP policies without isolating them into separate IP address spaces. These policies enforce specific DHCP configurations based on various criteria and provide greater control over how DHCP services are delivered to different types of clients, ensuring that each client or group of clients receive appropriate network settings. To achieve zero-touch provisioning of IoT devices, we incorporate PIGZ or pre-boot execution environment configurations. With the PIGZ configurations, the DHCP server does all the heavy lifting in provisioning boot files, configuration files, or even firmwares as soon as an IoT device connects to the network. This can include lightweight operating systems, specific security updates, and customized applications designed for minimal resource consumption and rapid boot times. Using PIGZ configurations, the DHCP server directs the IoT devices to the TFTP server in your network. TFTP server ensures that these files are centrally managed and deployed, significantly simplifying the process of updating and maintaining a large fleet of devices scattered across multiple locations. As you can see on the screen, we've created a client class that is programmed to recognize device based on the vendor profile. In the conditional statement, we've specified if the device belongs to the specific architecture type of architecture using an architecture code, it receives a certain file path. If you see below, the DHCP in the DHCP option section, you'll find a DHCP option named Next Server. The DHCP server directs the devices that match the criteria to a TFTP server with this particular IP address. All this can be automated by a DHCP server for hundreds and thousands of IoT devices as soon as they are plugged into your network without any manual intervention. This is actually a one-time configuration. You don't have to repeat it for every set of new devices joining your network. Configure it once. With these instructions in place, every time a new IoT device is plugged into your network, the targeted configurations would be applied for that device. So here's our use case number 2, live interactions with bank employees via ATMs. So let's consider in the early hours of a Saturday, a customer of a reputed bank faces an issue with one of their ATM machines. He is unable to retrieve cash from the machine even though he enters the correct credentials. He immediately opts for the connect with live agent option, which initiates a help call alert to the dedicated bank employees, including the network admin and the customer service agent who are working from home but are vigilant on the alert call. The customer service agent connects with the customer via a live video stream to understand the issue, while the network admin checks if the ATM machine has any connectivity issues or faulty network parameter assignments. For both the employees to help the customer, they need to be on the same network as the ATM he's been using to diagnose and establish real-time communications with him. So what's the solution here? The employees connect via VPN client and establish a secure connection to the bank's VPN gateway and using encrypted tunnels and ensuring data privacy and security. Once the VPN connection is established, each employee's device sends a DHCP request to obtain an IP address. The DHCP server verifies the device's credentials like MAC address against its client class policies. Upon successful authentication, the DHCP server assigns an IP address from a predefined subnet pool and the relevant DNS record, enabling the device to communicate on the ATM's network. With the secure IP address assigned, the bank employees can easily access network resources directly from their device as if they were closer to the customer. This connection facilitates seamless troubleshooting as both employees have access to the necessary resources to help the customer in need, thereby building trust in their services. Now, how to implement this in DDI Central? First, we create a client class on the DHCP server for the ATM subnet, just like the one you see on the screen. Let's look at the configurations. We see for the match type field, the substring option is chosen to tell the DHCP server to search for a specific sequence of characters within the client's DHCP message. The offset field searches is used to designate where this search should begin within the DHCP message. Since we want the search to begin from the very first character, we've entered the value 1 for the field. For the length field, we've given the value 17, which corresponds to the length of a MAC address. Enter hardware for the match string field, guiding the DHCP server to recognize and extract the hardware address from the packet. Since our goal is to match specific MAC addresses, each employee's MAC address has been added as a match value. Now, this client class must be associated with the ATM subnet within the branch network. This way, the DHCP server following the client class policies permit only devices with those specific MAC addresses to connect and collaborate with the customer in need right from the ATM machine to the employees working from home connected over the remote network. As we conclude today's webinar, let's focus on a key insight. DNS, DHCP, and IPAM are the cornerstones of network connectivity and operations. Integrating these into a full stack DDI management solution not only addresses critical network challenges, but also future-proofs your network. A full stack DDI solution consolidates all essential tools into a single interface, streamlining network administration and enhancing efficiency. While some institutions use freeware or open source DNS and DHCP server software or manage networks with spreadsheets, these approaches often lack the robustness needed for complex configurations. A full stack DDI management solution eliminates these costs and frees admins from routine tasks, allowing contextualized visibility and centralized management across distributed sites. DDI solutions harmonize security, management, and operational efficiency, safeguarding financial networks from cyber threats. As cyber threats evolve, DDI's importance in banking and financial networks will grow, making it a crucial component for their digital infrastructure. In an era of rapid digital transformation in banking and financial services, embracing DDI solutions is more than a technological investment. It marks a financial institution's commitment towards delivering high quality, flexible, and reliable financial services that customers always expect. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this webinar. Right after this session, you'll be directed to our downloads page where you can start your 30-day free trial today. We also have a live interactive demo up and running for you to explore and play around with. If you have any queries, please shoot us a mail at ddi-support at manageengine.com. This is your host Akshara signing off. Thank you.